it's a guy, but it's a character who looks one way, looks back at the camera, looks that way again, looks back at the camera, and he's just going, "Oh wait, I know what it is." It's the Family Guy show where they go, "What?"
3, 2, 1, hey.
Wisecrackers.
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 Wisecrackers. Starting now.
Come on to the Wisecrackers Ice Hockey Arena where we fire bar down and we sally hard all throughout the Stanley Cup Playoffs. We go from one round on to the next. 16 teams entered, only 8 remain in this gauntlet of the fight for Lord Stanley's finest hardware. Hello, one and all. I am Alec. He is Ian. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, man. I'm doing well. This first round was certainly entertaining. I kind of wish at least one of the series went differently. I think you know which one I'm referring to.
I mean, one of them certainly could have gone differently and more competitive rather than, yeah. But outside that, we can get on to the recaps of this first round. And we'll start with the Metro Division as a whole. I'm grouping the Rangers, Capitals, and Hurricanes Islanders series together because those are quick recaps. Basically, they've gone as what we expected them to go. Quick series with the favorites advancing. We weren't expecting much from the Capitals in the first round, and honestly, it might have been a kill shot for the best that the Rangers had to do. As for the Hurricanes, well, it took a little longer than the Rangers to knock down their opponent, which was the Islanders. Took a double overtime in Game 4 to extend this, but nonetheless, the Canes, of course, they were the better team over the Islanders, but this Metro Division basically has gone the way we expected to. What'd you think?
I most definitely agree, my man. I would say that I was surprised the Islanders put up more of a fight than they actually did. Simply because it looked like for most of the regular season that they were just out of it. I still don't know how they climbed back.
Me neither. It felt like they wanted to keep their season alive for another day on that double overtime slap shot by Robert Bortuzzo. But nonetheless, when you blow a 3-0 lead in Game 2, and then not once but twice you allow 2 goals in a span of less than 10 seconds in 2 separate occasions in this series, what? I don't understand how the Islanders, they were in this when they were out of it for so long. Did you do that in the playoffs, especially when Semyon Varlamov in Game 5, Steve Dangle can say a certain phrase.
If you're a goaltender,
tender goal! Oh,
yep.
Boy. But nonetheless, it was expected that the more dominant teams won, and now they're up against each other in the second round, which we'll look at the both of them later on this episode. Well, if we're looking at the Battle of Florida between the Panthers and the Lightning, would you think that we were expecting the Panthers to win, but we had the result a little underwhelming? Not sure if it's nostalgia or anything, or that we were expecting the Lightning's top-end talent to come up and show up in the earlier games of the series, but the only game the Bolts won was Game 4. Outside of that, it was either tight contested battles in Florida or one-sided bludgeonings.
Yeah, to me, what this was, it was a mercy killing. This just, if Tampa Bay's management is smart, they look back fondly on the memories of the cups they won with Stamkos and crew, but it's time. I think they need to start. I think they need, maybe not fully, maybe not tear down everything and rebuild, because I think we discussed that they do have some intriguing prospects that are at least 2 to 3 years out.
Yep. Dylan Duke,
But
Isaac Howard.
right, but Stamkos is done. The years of deep playoff runs for Stamkos, it's done. And plus, he doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't need to prove anything more. He won back-to-back cups with the Lightning.
Yeah, his legacy is already
And
solidified. So is Kucherov's.
yes, so is Kucherov's. Truth be told, I know he's got a few years in him, but so is Andrei Vasilevsky's. Although I think he's a little younger, I think, than those guys. So he's got a few more years in him. But honestly, if I'm the Lightning, because Alec, go ahead and look something up for me, please. How old is Andrei Vasilevsky?
Right around the cusp of 30.
30. What's the oldest a goalie has a goalie like Vasilevsky has gone and still been effective?
I think we may have to look back at Tim Thomas, back with that Conn Smythe Trophy run with the Boston Bruins that he's had. In his later 30s, putting on an elite run with the Bruins. Vasilevsky, he's 29, but he's on the cusp of 30, as is mentioned.
All right, so he's on the cusp of 30. If he maintains form, he could still be the backstop for them by the time those prospects come up. But if it looks like that everything isn't clicking, like if the new foundation or the new skeleton foundation, hasn't been ironed out for when the prospects get up there, nice mid-tier veteran talent, good, a good guiding post for the young kids coming up, kind of like what the Rangers have. If that's not there in Tampa, even on the age of 30, Vasilevsky would still fetch a nice haul.
He would. And going on to a contender nonetheless. Well, I get that his stats may be down. He's still a great goaltender. And I feel that those stats being down may be attributed to the defense no longer being what it once was. Florida made sure of that.
My assessment of the Lightning has nothing to do with Vasilevsky's talent. That's, that can never be brought into question. It's where will Tampa it's more of where will that talent that he has right now and that production that he has right now be at by the time the next crop comes around? If that's not there, as much as it would hurt Lightning fans, the sensible thing to do would be to more or less, with grace, of course, because Vasilevsky embodies the Lightning. But if you're being honest, you're not going to be able to compete. If they try to do what the Penguins and the Red Wings are doing, they're going to waste Andre. They're going to waste whatever he's got left. I don't want them, for their own sake, they should trade him. Get a haul of prospects, find the diamonds in the rough. You could get, honestly, with how Vasilevsky is still playing, if you say straight up, maybe not 2 firsts. Well, I don't know. What do you think a team could? What do you think the Lightning could ask for Vasilevsky? Not right now, because I don't think they're going to trade him right now. But let's say in a year or two, if things aren't starting to pan out.
I'd say later down the line, because you're right about not trading him right now. Say that he fetches at least a first-round pick. That would be the first thing that I would do in such a Vasilevsky trade. Some building blocks to go around, some prospects around, and some contracts that you could take up. say, impactful NHL players who can provide depth to the Lightning around, and you can use them for your long-term plans. See what they did with Brandon Hagel? He's developed into one of their better players. They tried doing a similar route in which trading away a Hall for Tanner Jeannot. That hasn't worked, but Mikey Eyssimont, he silently panned out in Tampa Bay. They could use someone of his caliber, someone of Hagel's caliber down for the stretch if they want to deal Vasilevsky.
Right. And as we've seen around the league, yes, it's hit or miss if you don't have the top end goalies. But we've also seen teams take goalies that quite literally no one has ever heard of, or if you have heard of them, it just means that you are a hockey aficionado. The golden example recently being Aiden Hill. Okay, let's be honest. Who knew that Aiden Hill was on the San Jose Sharks before this? Before he went to Vegas and had that insane playoff run?
I guess
I
Sharks fans only, I guess.
Yeah, because I did not know about him. I didn't know the name Laurent Brossoit before he was starting in net for the Vegas Golden Knights. So the thing is, for Tampa Bay, you're gonna have to trade some pieces because that Tanner Jeannot.
Yeah, Ian, you cut out a bit there. Did something happen to you? We're having some difficulties here with Ian for the moment, so to pick up what he was saying, that you're going to have to get some pieces in return in such a trade, because what he was saying, the Jeannot trade is not working. It's basically, the trade was boom or bust in Jeannot's case, and it's busting right now. When you trade away 5 picks for Jeannot, and then you sign him to that 2-year deal. It's not working out, unfortunately.
Right.
Oh, you're back.
So, yeah.
Yep. So we got to Tampa. If you want to know about a team that could certainly use some goaltending and perhaps get one further down the line, I may suggest the Los Angeles Kings, but they couldn't get a goaltender because Linus Ullmark used his no movement clause or no trade clause to his leverage to stay with the Boston Bruins, and that has bit the Kings down for the road. You know what it feels like for the Kings? You gave up the right assets for the wrong player. You're wanting to go for Pierre-Luc Dubois to boost the offense? I would rather focus on the goaltending. They should have went after Connor Hellebuck in the offseason last year, and that decision might have bit them.
Yeah, I feel like now hindsight is completely 2020. If they had traded for Hellebuck at the time they traded for Dubois, we would have been looking at that as an excellent trade because up to that point, Hellebuck had been outstanding.
Yeah, to be fair, yes. Dubois, basically, it's a mixed bag. You don't know what you're getting with Dubois. One day he's hot, one day he's cold. Year 1 of the Dubois experiment hasn't been the best for the Kings so far to say. And I felt like if you're the Kings and if you're Rob Blake, looking back at the decision to not go for Hellebuck, and then looking back at the 5-game series loss at the hands of the Oilers, you're thinking, what if?
Yeah, I mean, let's look now. The game has changed dramatically since the Kings won their cups. But one thing that has not changed in this new speed-based game is the elite ability or the ability of an elite goaltender. The fact of the matter is, if they had Jonathan Quick in his prime today, it still would have been a slog, but they would not have been just outclassed by the Oilers because at his prime, Quick won games for the Kings. really, I think that's the problem with the Kings right now, is that they've been getting lucky with having a mishmash of goalies, and to their credit, for the regular season, it serves them well. But at some point, you have to invest in a top flight goaltender, whether that be free agency. I don't know if any of the goalies that are hitting free agency are going to be worth it, or if the Kings have the capital to do so. And if they don't, you're just going to have to do it by the draft. And that may have to come later when they have a bad season.
Well, among the free agents, I'm not sure if there are if there are any free agents that are certainly of note so far in the offseason, because it's a weak goaltending free agency market right now. Not a lot of notable free agents, and mostly you could be getting a backup at best if you're the LA Kings or any other goaltender needy team. You may want to be looking for goaltenders at the draft, or if you're going for the long term, they have Eric Portello at their prospect system. He played college hockey at the University of Michigan. He's in their system. I'm not sure if he's going to get brought up into the discussion if I'm Rob Blake or the LA Kings, but he could be considered. But as for the team that has Hellebuck himself, the Winnipeg Jets, man, that wasn't just a disappointment. They crashed and
Crashed and burned. You don't even have to sugarcoat that, because, hang on, weren't they seated above the Avalanche?
Not only that, they swept the Avalanche in the regular season series and outscored them 17-4 in the regular season along with that. They didn't, I said, crash and burn in the middle of a Manitoba field.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I understand. The only major injury that I think the Avalanche still had was their captain Landeskog, correct?
It is Landeskog paired with Logan O'Connor, who are both out for the year. In fact, Landeskog is projected to be out for a second straight season this year, but he has an outside chance of returning. That's not guaranteed, however.
Right, so you're the Winnipeg Jets. Somehow, everything clicked during the regular season. Your offense was good. As far as I know, their defensive numbers weren't that bad either. And Hellebuck was, and you know, I've been hearing things about Hellebuck and him coming back down to earth from his other seasons, but they were still winning games.
Because of him.
And then, yeah, because of him. So everything just seemed to fall apart right at the end. I mean, I don't know. Was it like last year? Was it a lack of effort? Was it, was Colorado just playing possum the entire year, and then they finally woke up? I don't have an answer. If this had been stretched out to, let's say, 7 games, I could argue what I argue with the Toronto and Boston series. It was a battle of attrition, and one team had to lose. But the Jets, it's not the fact that they lost and got beat. It almost seemed like they were getting outskated to the pucks every single time.
It doesn't make sense outside the fact that I have the feeling that Colorado was making Winnipeg play their brand of game, and Winnipeg got beat to that as well. So Colorado, they're a team that skates fast and uses a complete 200-foot game, and they know how to utilize the speed game when the playoffs arrive. That's their strength, and I felt Winnipeg tried to emulate Colorado in doing so and got burned in it. But what doesn't explain this, it doesn't explain what I just said does not explain the fact that the Jets allowed at least 5 goals in every single game against the Avalanche. I get the Avs wake up in the playoffs, but geez, it shouldn't be this bad against them. Good Lord.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like so someone posted, I'm convinced now that someone is making a hockey version of Space Jam, because how else do you explain Hellebuck giving up 5+ goals every single game, and it's not the Monstars stealing his power?
It felt like it was Colorado not only stealing his power, but the competitive fire in his eyes as well. After game 1, it just all fell apart. Inexplicably. The thing is, with the declining attendance numbers from the Jets this season because of the fallout from last year with the departure of Blake Wheeler and the trading of Pierre-Luc Dubois, I get the nice return when you have Gabe Vilardi, Alex Iafallo, Rasmus Kupari, and that second-round pick. But there was a tweet from Tree, I know we both follow him, that he has the feeling that this is going to spark the domino effect that causes the Jets to move or anything like that. And I don't want that to happen. The both of us don't want that to happen because the Jets, they have a passionate hockey market. But the arena holds 15,000 people. That's too small for an NHL arena. I would propose an arena that would house at least 17 or 18,000 seats.
Yeah, I mean, geez. Even when the Coyotes were, even when Buffalo, because the Coyotes are a bad example. Even when the Buffalo Sabres were going through they still haven't figured out how to win consistently, but even when the Sabres were having their troubles, at least their fans will show up. Not saying the Jets fans don't, but it's like, you have this team that's returned to a place that had their franchise stolen from them, and what's now looking like the worst relocation / expansion venture in NHL history. I know about the Atlanta Thrashers, but really, if you look at the Atlanta Thrashers history, they were gone long before the Coyotes. I'm talking in terms of how much time and effort was put into keeping the Coyotes in Arizona versus Atlanta. The NHL didn't give a damn about the Atlanta Thrashers, and that's why they gave up on them so easily. But the Coyotes, they tried to keep them there for so long, and the Jets and Winnipeg got the Thrashers, and the Coyotes, as it now looks, have been one of the biggest disappointments in NHL history. Which, going back to the Winnipeg Jets, it's looking like yet again another relocation is going to bottom out. This time, however, it's a little bit different, because the team that is relocating actually had winning seasons. Okay, it wasn't a lot, but they had a few deep playoff runs in their tenure. The problem is they never, when they tried to keep a team around, they didn't do enough. I mean, sure, listen, Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, Connor Hellebuck, those are all great players. Who else?
Nikolai Ehlers comes to mind. Patrick
Right.
Laine under franchise history. How about
Him too.
those seasons of Dustin Byfuglien, Jacob Trouba?
Yeah, you're okay. So they had more than 3 players, but again, like we've said before on our Twitter broadcast, and now we're now on Twitch and Discord. What makes an NHL franchise successful is that their team from top to bottom, while they may not all be household names, they are all adequate talent in their own way. And it just feels like the Jets have had they're kind of like the Oilers. They've had their names, but where was the rest? Where were the rest of the pieces to make it all fit? The Oilers have just figured it out, apparently. Apparently they just figured out how to build a complete team this year, because it looks like they're getting ready to run roughshod over everyone, although I still think the Vancouver Canucks are going to surprise people.
Yeah, you're right about that. But it's just rough for Winnipeg fans to think about that. And as we speak of the Vancouver Canucks, well, I just wanted to touch on the Jets a little bit more. I just don't know what's going to happen for them to get out of this rut. Just no matter what they do, it just doesn't pan out. And now we get the news that Rick Bowness is retiring as a head coach.
Yeah.
After 38
See,
years.
Yeah, and that's also something you could look at. I mean, not saying I'm not saying the coaches that Winnipeg has had were bad or they shouldn't have had those jobs. I'm not saying that at all, but when you look at their coaches, especially recently, I mean, it always seemed like there was a problem at the end with that coach.
Paul
Or
Maurice.
yeah.
Yeah, problem, or what was it that you were saying?
I was saying that the Winnipeg Jets, while it's hard to judge who the Winnipeg Jets are. Actually, no, it's not. The Winnipeg Jets, they are a regular season squad. That's what they are. They'll put up great seasons. They'll keep the fans interested, but except for actually, wow. When it comes to the playoffs, they are actually very similar to the Coyotes in a lot of ways. Underachieve a lot in the playoffs, have limited success, have one deep run where you have one in the Winnipeg Jets case, maybe 2 runs where you reach the conference finals, but you never get to the Stanley Cup finals.
2018 comes to mind on that magical run, and it's easier said than done on what the plans are to fix them in the long term, because there is no easy solution if you're Mark Chipman or Kevin Cheveldayoff. Well, and that brings us, as we were speaking about the Vancouver Canucks earlier, well, oh my god. Oh my god. This series actually ended? Oh my word.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta tell you, man. It the Vancouver Canucks, they may be ready to go on some type of insanity run because how? Explain to me, Alec. How is it that you basically do what the Vegas Golden Knights did last year? Not for the whole playoffs, mind you, because that hasn't happened yet. But for the first round, you go in there. You lose Thatcher Demko, your starting goaltender, who has been spectacular. I understand most of his seasons he's spectacular, but this season he was just on it the entire time. Then, but he goes down after the first game. Then you have Casey DeSmith, who you know as a Penguins fan very well. He seemed to underachieve a bit in Pittsburgh, but apparently found his niche with the Vancouver Canucks. He was able to win a game. He was able to win a game for them, and he goes down. And then you're left with wait, who?
Artur Shilovs.
Arthur Shilovs. Okay, if you told me that you knew who Arthur Shilovs was before these playoffs and you are not a Vancouver Canucks fan or someone who follows hockey as closely as Alec does, you're lying. There's no way you knew who Arthur Shilovs was.
Now, to get the background of this, he did get reps as a backup goaltender last season in the midst of all the goaltender injuries where Vancouver had to deal with Spencer Martin and Colin Delia with Demko out. Now that he's a first-string goaltender, he's right behind Demko and DeSmith on the depth charts, but now he gets called upon to the occasion because both of Demko and DeSmith were out, which thrust Shilovs in the starting role. I get Game 4 was a little learning experience, despite the final score being 4-3. It was a learning experience because 3 goals allowed, you're going to have a rocky road to begin with. The heroics of Brock Besser won Vancouver that game. It was in Games 5 and 6 where Shilov shone best. Yeah, I get that in Game 5 Vancouver lost, but Game 6, that was Shilov's magnum opus. A shutout.
Just see, you know what makes me so happy for these guys, but also just has me laughing? Is imagine you're a third string goaltender. Probably you are in the AHL or even ECHL for a bit for most of the season. You're in the AHL or ECHL or whatever. And then come the playoff, you see both goaltenders ahead of you go down, and you're told, by the way, you have to go in. They're like,
Yeah, the same
okay.
face that I was making. You're kidding me, right? You're kidding me.
It's the oh god, what's that? I think there's a perfect meme for this. I forget what it is, but it's a guy, but it's a character who looks one way, looks back at the camera, looks that way again, looks back at the camera, and he's just going, "Oh wait, I know what it is." It's the Family Guy trope where they go, "What?"
Oh, I, I, I must be living under a rock because I haven't even heard of such Family Guy episodes. I've been on the other side stuck with South Park.
Well, what would you say the perfect South Park comparison to this would be, where the most unimaginable thing has to happen like that?
I mean, I can't remember what exactly the episode of South Park, but let me put the reaction of, let's say that this goaltender's receiving the news that they're going to start. They're having an expression similar to how Randy Marsh reacted in one episode. I can't remember the episode, but his reaction was, wait, whoa, what the
Yep. And the best part is that this story so far has been very successful. He's looked at, he's now being brought in. I'm gonna be honest, for other Sea Love, I know he isn't, but if someone had told me, oh yeah, he's an emergency goaltender, I would have believed them. I would have believed it. I'm sorry, I did not know who he was at all, but this man has gone on a David Ayers arc.
oh. Oh, oh my God. Well, Nashville feels Toronto's pain after all, then. Well, now that you speak of Nashville.
So, you know what? He isn't, but I gotta say it. They just lost to a Zamboni driver.
Oh. Oh my God. Oh my God. You're killing me out here. Nashville, on the other hand, hasn't lost to a Zamboni driver, but when you, one, lose to a team that, one, allowed a shot 12 times on goal in game 3, 2, came back from down 3-1 and won in overtime with just 3 minutes left in regulation, and then 3, a scoreless deadlock until the 58-minute mark for the first goal. Nashville's living deja vu, minus the part of the comeback. This feels like the Stanley Cup final that the Predators were in all over again. Because like the Stanley Cup final, they lost when they allowed 12 shots on goal in one game, and they lost when they allowed the first goal of the game at the 58-minute mark. And this time around, they don't have ref puck to deflect it onto. This is the type of loss that teams struggle to recover from on most days. But most of the time, if I'm Nashville, it just feels like a painful feeling when you lose a series like that.
Yeah, it's rough. However, it's just, with Nashville, though, they're not in a position to blow it up. If they didn't have Yusei Saros and their goaltending situation was in flux, I would say that maybe it's time for Barry Trotz to start building the team in his own vision. But you can't tear apart the team and still have Yusei there in net.
Yeah, because if they would tear apart the team, that would imply that they will be turning to Yaroslav Askarov in net right now while dealing with Yusei Saros. You have the key pieces necessary for a playoff run. Philip Forsberg, Roman Josi, Ryan McDonough, Ryan O'Reilly, everyone around. Luke Evangelista's coming to his own. So is Tommy Novak. Gustav Nyquist you have in there. But then again, even though it's a painful loss, don't blow it up.
Yeah, but it feels like it's the one thing that teams always run into when they're trying to make a push. They just don't have that one impact player where they can say, okay, we have. I mean, don't get me wrong. Roman Yossi is a predator. Is the predator of all Nashville Predators. Like, I get that. He is Mr. Nashville for that team. He's been there forever. I think since the team came. He hasn't been there since the team came into fruition, right?
Roman Yossi, well, let's say that he's been around since last decade. If you talk about since the team came into fruition, that would be Barry Trotz as their first ever head coach. He left for Washington, then the Islanders, then came back as the team's second ever general manager. David Poile and Trotz helped build this team together as a general manager head coach duo.
Right. But Roman Yossi has been the franchise player for the Predators.
He has.
I think he still has something, but he cannot be your main guy. He can be, but you can't. It's not on him to win you games anymore. You need the impact player, and for the Predators to do that, I think they have to go the route that the Florida Panthers took when they traded for Matthew Tkachuk. You know, when it was a gamble. When the Panthers did that, it was a massive gamble. It boomed. But right now, I don't think the Predators have the cap to go out and sign a big-time free agent. I feel like they have too many. Now, if you could fact check me on that before I make any more statements, that'd be great. I don't want to be wrong on this.
Yeah, currently, they have $6 million of cap space. Their free aid, I feel their core is still around right now. They have free agents in Jason Zucker, Anthony Beauvillier, Kiefer Sherwood, Tyson Barrie, Alex Carrier, and Kevin Lankinen. So in terms of unrestricted free agents, we expect the cap number to come down for Nashville, which means they're going to have more cap space to fill up in the offseason, but we'll have to see by the end of this season what exactly that number is going to be.
Right. So really what they need a guy who can come in right away and not take over the team, but be that number one scorer. I've been going over it in my head, and while it's tough, it is tough to see what player would make sense. Actually, no, that's not no, that's not gonna happen. If this was last offseason, I would have said they try and swing a trade for let's say a Steven Stamkos, but now now is not the time. Stamkos is too old now. Actually, I would think, if Nashville was feeling Jesus,
Let's see who.
if Nashville was feeling really ballsy and you're gonna hate me for this.
Who you think?
Maybe if you're Barry Trotz and you're feeling you're feeling froggy, call up the Penguins. Let's face it, the Penguins are done. It was time for a change. It was time for a change last offseason. Kyle Dubas came in, and he did his best. But right now, okay, answer me this honestly, Alec. Do you think Crosby will still be playing at the level he's playing at by the time a new crop of prospects come in? Will he still be playing at that ability by the time the prospects are ready to make a run? In your honest opinion.
At the time our prospects are ready to come up, and I'm talking guys like Braden Yeager, Owen Pickering, all those guys. We already have Valtteri Puustinen come up and play in a full-time basis, but by the time that everyone else is ready, I wouldn't expect that Sidney Crosby play at the same level that he has been playing right now. He's still good, but how much longer does he have left in the tank? I may give it 1 or 2 more years until the wheels start to fall off.
So, honestly, if I'm Barry Trotz, I get ballsy. I call up the Penguins and I say, what do I need to give you to get Sidney Crosby on this team?
I feel that's a pipe dream.
Like I said, if he was feeling froggy, but I know that Barry Trotz is not like that, but if Nashville is trying to win and win now, they're going to have to do something unconventional. I was just throwing out an extreme.
All right, I get you on that.
Because
the extreme.
Because tell me right now, with the roster that Nashville has, they would have to give up a lot for that to be even manageable. But with the roster they have, if you stuck Crosby in there and their current coach is as good is decent enough, would that be enough for the Preds?
It's a coin flip. I'm gonna say it's a coin flip right now. It all determines to however you see it down for the future, but I'm just gonna say it's a coin flip.
Yeah, like I said, like you said, it's a pipe dream, but it's a gamble. You have to do something if you're Nashville, because if you keep going the way you are now, you'll get to the playoffs, but where will you go?
You're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah,
says Sans. Well, not spoiling Undertale or anything, but
right.
One team that encountered a bad ending. Well, staying with the West, not exactly a bad ending per se, but for the second time in franchise history, the Vegas Golden Knights have been bounced in the first round in 7 games against Peter DeBoer of all people again. In a different team this time around, with Vegas playing on the road in Game 7 again. Now granted, Vegas did fight hard to make this a tight series. They took the first 2 games, forced a Game 6 with their backs against the wall. Now this was more of a low-scoring, defensive-minded series. Now all the talk has been about the Dallas scoring depth, but we don't give a lot of credit to their defense for rising to the occasion. Jake Ottinger activated brick wall status and earned his second career Game 7 victory against a Pacific Division opponent. All hats to him, and all hats to the Dallas Stars and DeBoer, who we like to poke fun at for his lack of adjusting in the playoffs. He knows how to win Game 7s. He's now 8-0 in these situations.
Yeah.
But
you know what though? With this, even with this first round loss, Vegas accomplished what they needed to. They won a cup. I feel like, at least for me, I feel like that gives them a little bit of a cushion.
it does.
Because they've expended a lot to get to where they are. And if they can't keep wheeling and dealing to get talent there, Vegas fans might have to go through their first rough period, but at least for now, they have a Stanley Cup to hold on to. That's more than than other teams can say.
Yeah, it's a saving grace period. I mean,
yeah,
they have to. It's a natural cycle of life to go through rough periods. Vegas has yet to experience one. They had a mini rough period in the 1 year when they missed the playoffs. But now you have to deal with the free agencies of Jonathan Marchessault, Chandler Stevenson, Anthony Mantha, Will Carrier, Michael Madio, Alec Martinez, and the RFA status of Pavel Dorofeyev. Now, I know you're not going to keep all of them, but it feels like now that you've got Noah Hannafin and Tomas Hertl locked up on the long term, the questions arise about the statuses of Stevenson and Marchessault if you're able to keep both of them, or one of them.
Stevenson's gone. If they were going to try and keep well, I think they would bring back Marchessault. But that's just me, simply because Marchessault has a link with the city. I understand Stevenson has played well, but it's the fact that he's played well. He's going to be gunning for the biggest payday, which he should, because these past few seasons, Chandler Stevenson has proven that while he may be a depth guy, he is one of the most elite depth pieces a team can have. So he's going to get paid pretty.
He will. A nice pay
I don't
raise.
think. Yeah, Vegas isn't going to have the capital for that. What they're not going to do, I don't think they're going to bring back Alec Martinez.
Yeah.
He's on the older side. He's been in the league for a while. I feel like so all the players you listed are unrestricted free agents, correct?
All except Dorofeyev. And then you nailed it with Martinez. Now that he's on the older side, plus with the Hannafin extension, it felt like on this defensive core, Martinez was the odd man out.
Yeah, so he's gone. It pains me to say, but the Vegas is going to have roster turnover. How much cap space, if they were going to re-sign, say, including re-signing Marchessault, I don't know. Now, I don't know what type of salary he's going to be looking at. I feel like he's been the same productive guy. Get points, score goals, get assists, all that. I feel like he's still been that guy. I just don't know what he will command. I mean, what does the cap situation look like for the Golden Knights after all the contracts end?
I mean, if you're looking at it this way, you have 4, 5, 6, 7 unrestricted free agents, with Yuri Patera in Group 6, Pavel Dorofeyev as an RFA. I think you have the money to keep Marchessault and Dorofeyev. Mantha, thank you for your services and your minimal time here. I think he is gone. Chandler Stevenson, he is good as gone. William Carrier, I don't think he's coming back. Michael Madio, you may have the money to bring him back at the very least on a league minimum deal.
They may bring him back on like a 1-year deal just so he has another season to up his stats, because Amadio isn't that old, right?
So he is 27 years old. A 1-year deal. At the minimum, it's a league minimum, but at around 1 or 1.25 million on a 1-year deal, would it suit him?
Here's the thing. Amadio, to me, he doesn't have the same impact as a Chandler Stevenson, so he's not going to get the same payday. However, if he performs adequately on a 1-year deal and makes himself actually, okay, there are a few ways this could go if he signs a 1-year deal. If he signs a 1-year deal and Vegas does well and he looks good, he opens himself up to getting a big payday from other teams, and we'll see how that goes from there. Or let's say things aren't going well for the Golden Knights during the regular season, and they may be looking to offload a contract or two. And if they sign Amadio to a 1-year deal, that's an expiring contract, and he's performing well. They can trade him, get draft capital from another team, and then go from there. And he could be on another playoff contender and prove his services there, and still put himself in the line for a big payday. So, if the cards all fall right, barring anything, this is all contingent on Amadio being healthy and playing well.
I see you there. That's all contingent on him all around. In Vegas, they have a lot of crucial decisions to make in the offseason. I know Marchessault, Amadio, those are not the only ones. They may have to figure out something else if they want to free up more cap room as well. Then that's
let's see though, if they to make cap room,
yeah, I feel they may be comfortable with the way they're at right now. I'm not sure if they're willing to move anyone on the roster currently as it's constructed.
I mean, could they? I mean, are they? Would they even if they wanted to? Could they?
I don't think they can. I think they're stuck in the way they are, but they're content with the way they are, and they like things that way. They're not in the worst position imaginable. They're a playoff team. Let's not get it twisted, and they're still going to compete for Stanley Cups as long as they have this core constructed.
Right. So yeah, right now the Golden Knights are kind of on cruise control. The season didn't go as planned, but that's okay. You know, they're gonna, and plus, let's face it, if they beat Dallas, who would they have faced in the second round?
Colorado.
Oh yeah, no, if they had to face Colorado, they were getting smacked.
Yeah, that would be a bad matchup for them, in our opinions.
Yeah, in our opinions. Okay, so, yeah. So Vegas loses. We've gone over their future.
Yeah, we only have one team left.
Yep, and that is.
Oh my. Okay.
Oh boy.
Well, I'll start off with this. I used to think that the Toronto Maple Leafs are a tragedy. Now all of us realize they're a comedy. Let's just start with that. I mean, if there's a team that basically personifies, looks like, and characterizes the word pain, it is the Toronto Maple Leafs. If there's a team that can relate to my Pittsburgh Steelers on losing to a team from the Boston/New England region, it is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Much like how the Steelers lose to the Patriots every turn, the Leafs just find new ways to lose to the Boston Bruins. Doesn't matter how, doesn't matter why. It's just simply written up in the stars. It just feels like they just cannot escape their fate. How the Toronto Raptors didn't escape this fate 4 years ago despite being the defending NBA champions by then. The Leafs...
Yeah. And, I mean, even I can draw a parallel with that. The Chiefs in the 90s had one of the best defenses. They had adequate. They had decent talent on offense, except for Joe Montana, though the quarterback stunk. There was always one team that lorded over them. The Broncos. Why? Because they had John Elway.
And a well-rounded team.
But mostly it was Elway. He would always find a way to make the Chiefs look like fools.
And much like how the Leafs are getting made look like fools by the Boston Bruins, it's a different year, different outlook for the teams, the same result. Now this time around, it was with Patrice Bergeron up at the stands as the flag waver for Game 7. but his presence lifted the Bruins' spirits up and all around after it looked like they were left for dead after losing games 5 and 6. Toronto, they turned the series around not because of their offense, but because of a change in net. Ilya Samsonov was not that good in games 1 through 4. I get he played his heart out in game 7. He's not getting a pass here because of how bad he was. He was pulled in game 4 because of how terrible he looked. It was not doing himself any favors, and Jeremy Swayman turned into God mode for the Bruins, much like how Tuukka Rask and Tim Thomas were.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to begin with Jeremy Swayman. It seemed like when the Leafs would score against him, it was never a one-timer. It was never, they never juked him out of his net. It would always, not to downplay it, but it always seemed like luck when the Leafs would score. When the Leafs would score on Swayman, it always seemed like luck. A bit.
I mean, a bit. That Matt Nice rebound in game 5 in overtime. Brandon Carlos misplay at his own defensive end in game 7. So there is a bit of luck attributed to the factor, not to mention Jake McCabe's slap shot or Nice threading enough needle. It was a mix of luck and skill on all of them. But the Leafs, they won their 2 games to force the game 7 without Austin Matthews. Now, there is a talk about William Nylander's migraines, and I concern is valid. It impacted his vision, and migraines are not to be taken lightly. Austin Matthews, he was under the weather, out of the equation games 5 and 6. It's not excuses, but it's just backdrop into what happened behind the scenes. But still, no matter what happens, it's just destiny.
Yeah, and we all know what's coming next for Toronto. I mean, there is going to be so much overhaul. But even with this series win, I'm still not taking the Bruins seriously because they were so sloppy in this series. I'm going to say it. Any other team, they face any other team, they don't win that series. I don't even think they go 7 games.
I mean,
because even though they won the series, I'm going to say it, I think they're frauds. I feel like they got insanely lucky. I think that if Joseph Woll is it Joseph Woll or...
Yeah, it was Joseph Woll. He got hurt at that buzzer beater goal.
Right. If Joseph Woll doesn't get hurt and he starts game 7, we may still be looking. I feel like if Woll was playing, the Leafs win that series. I can't tell you why, but it just felt like the previous 2 games that he played as their goaltender, he stood on his head for that team. He had Uncle Mo on his side. And while Samsonov played okay, actually, I'm not even going to say, and in game 7, he played excellent. I would say that overtime goal was more so on the defense of Toronto not being there than Samsonov. Because how do you let a weapon like David Pastrnak get behind you like that?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean,
for that question, you may have to ask Mitch Marner that question because he was caught way off guard on that play Where
Oh
was
my,
the effort from him? Jeez.
Lord, Mitch Marner. I, I expressed my sentiment. I expressed my feelings about Mitch Marner after after the after the game in John's space. After Game 7 was over. I feel like Mitch Marner is one of the contract he got. He has not played. The statistics may say he played up to it, but the contract he got was Matthews' money, and he he is not Austin Matthews by a good margin, unless you want to make the argument. Now, okay, if you want to make the argument that Matthews has played over his contract, yes. But to do that as a defense for Mitch Marner, it just invalidates that point because Marner, he's supposed to be part of the core four. As a core four member, you do not let David Pastrnak get behind you, get behind the entire defense.
You
Your
don't.
job is to be there to stop him, and it boggles the mind. I said it. I said it in the space. If the Leafs are going to, the Leafs are going to have to offload people, and Marner should be the first one on that list because I don't see him. I don't see him doing anything for the Leafs in the playoffs in the future. I mean, what were his? I understand that Austin Matthews. Okay, Austin Matthews did not perform, as exceptionally in the regular season as he did. He was out for 2 games, but he did score. But he scored at least a couple goals, if I remember. At least 1 or 2, if I remember correctly, for
Well,
the series. Unless I'm wrong, which,
you go
I'm.
back. He scored once. That was the winner in game 2, and he assisted on the only goal the Leafs had in game 7. But he tied the team lead for playoff points among the entire Maple Leafs. 4. And he did so in 2 less games. The Leafs power play as a whole went 1 for 21. And the team as a whole scored 12 total goals. You don't
I
win
mean,
series like that.
wait, Alec. What what was the power play? What were the power play numbers for the Leafs?
1 for 21.
Now, are you saying that? Are you saying that the Leafs, through 7 games, took 21 shots on power plays? That's averaging 3 shots per game on a power play. Now, hang on. Not shots. Is that shots or how many power plays they had in the series?
The 21 is the number of power plays they had in the series. Now, before I
Okay.
start, now before I turn it over back to you, the Maple Leafs power play against the Bruins, regular season and playoffs, has been mostly neutralized for the most part. But if you were to win a playoff series, you have to do better than going 1 for 21 in a series. I feel that may be on coaching on how to figure out the Bruins penalty kill because the PK was skating circles around the Leafs all regular season and playoffs long.
Yeah. I mean, you average 3 power plays a game. You win 7 games. You had 21 power play attempts. That's averaging exactly 3 power plays on the other team. That right there, I understand. Not every power play is going to work, but let's say they got half of those goals, or close to half, either even the lower half of that, 10 for 21. That is 10 goals spread out through a series, and depending on where those goals are, this series could have been over. This series could have been over for the Leafs by game 5.
It's not helping matters about the disconnect between Sheldon Keefe and Morgan Riley, who's the heart and soul of this Leafs franchise. Keefe is saying that the Leafs don't have an effort problem, while Riley's saying that the team has an effort problem. I lean more towards Riley's stance and the notion that there is an effort problem in Toronto. Could it be coaching? Could it be the players not caring that much? Because William Nylander, he put his heart and soul into the series even after coming back from migraines. Austin Matthews, in the limited time that he's had, he put his heart and soul into this series. John Tavares, he was winning faceoffs for them. Also, providing an offensive spark. Matt Nyes, delivering. Morgan Riley, delivering. Joseph Wall, delivering.
I feel like the only player you can really point at is maybe Marner because of his big gap in the final game, but even I don't know if you can really say that. But the thing is, if it is in fact coaching, if it's in fact coaching, I mean, what exactly do you do? Because I mean, if he wasn't currently the Flyers coach, let's face it, whatever team John Tortorella would go to, they either go off like a nuke and they're destroyed themselves, or they do what the Flyers did this season, where they get off to a hot start. In this case, the Flyers tailed off at the end. But John Tortorella had those guys grinding on the ice. And they don't have near the level of talent that the Toronto Maple Leafs do. But I feel like what does it seem like Sheldon Keefe is kind of a player's coach to you? Like he's a nice guy.
Look, I may be starting to get the notion that Keefe is starting to become is a player's coach. There is that notion, someone who just wants to let the players do their work, and not a lot of instructions. You need to, if I'm Toronto, there needs to be a transition to where you get a hard coach who can not only push their players mentally and test them, but also build a bond around their players all throughout the ice. All 20 skaters and goaltenders on the ice, that you can build a rapport around them and develop a nice relationship with them, talk to them friendly and all of that, but you need to push them as well. I'm not saying that you go one end of the spectrum and Sheldon Keefe, but on the other hand, stay as far away as you can from Mike Babcock.
Oh God. No, that man should never get another head coaching job in the NHL ever again. Oh dear Lord. I would say, you know what? As much as it pains me to say this, they would. I don't even know, like, any coach but Mike Babcock, because oh man. But yeah, the Leafs. Okay, This is a cross sport comparison, but I think it's valid. We all know that when LeBron James went back to Cleveland, their first coach there was a guy named David Blatt. He did not really challenge LeBron or the other players because he didn't want to step on any toes. That wasn't that it became apparent that while they made it to the playoffs,
That
it
was not
wasn't really
working.
because it was well that and it wasn't because Blatt was coaching. It was more the fact it was LeBron still playing at a high level. They actually fired David Blatt early in the 2016 regular season,
Or midway.
even though the team was like the team had a winning record at the time. Who did they replace him with? Tyronn Lue. Tyronn Lue, I actually have a book that details everything that happened leading up to when LeBron signed with Cleveland to when they won the championship. And it says in there that Ty Lue was not afraid to look at LeBron and say, "You're going to do this my way. This team is going to be coached my way. We are going to win my way. If I want your opinion, I will ask you, but I am the coach." I feel like the Leafs need a coach who he's not going to alienate the talent on that team, but he's going to make them work. He's going to be that coach who makes them do suicide skates or up downs or whatever they call those in hockey practice, up and down whenever they get beat out to pucks. You know, they need a coach that's going to say one series win in 20 years or 24 years or 21 years or something like that. That's not good enough. That is never that has never been good enough. If you They need a coach that says if you truly want to win, you don't prove it in the regular season. You can get to the. It's obvious you have the talent to get to the postseason, but can you back it up when we get to the playoffs?
How does Craig Berube sound for Toronto?
Um, Craig Berube, it's you know what? Craig Berube might be the guy they need because listen, Craig Berube was not going to stick around in St. Louis. Okay, the team just did not have the collection of talent that was needed to go on another run. They had it. They did have it for a while after their cup run, but when you trade away Ryan O'Reilly, Nico Mikkola, you know, when you trade away Ryan O'Reilly or you trade away O'Reilly and Mikkola, you trade away Tarasenko and
Barbashev?
who was and Tarasenko, yeah, Barbashev. They traded another guy to the Rangers or wherever they traded Tarasenko to, because I know that Mikkola. Wait, hold on.
Yeah, Mikola's with Tarasenko with the Rangers.
Mikkola was with Tarasenko with the Rangers. But I know we sent more than Ryan O'Reilly up to the Leafs. There was one other guy that went with him from the Blues.
Yeah, Achari.
Yeah, yeah. We also sent Achari there with Ryan O'Reilly. The fact of the matter is, a lot of talent was traded away last season. I've said this before. It was the right thing to do. All of them were on expiring contracts, and there was no way you were going to be able to bring back all, or any of them for that matter. And even if you did bring one or two of them back, you don't have the firepower to go on a run. You know that late season streak they went on during the regular season. The playoff hopes were hanging on by a thread, and as we saw with if they had to face the Dallas Stars, they would have been out. It, at the very best case scenario, it would have been a gentleman's sweep. But
Would have been.
in terms of Craig Berube being the head coach for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I will say this. That is the same man who came into a team who was dead last in their division, or maybe not the NHL, but dead last in their division,
Well,
and then coached that team to a 10-plus game winning streak
you were
to
right
get
about
back.
the dead last, not only the division, but the entire league as a whole.
So at that time, they were dead last in the entire league, and he coached that team up to be the eventual Stanley Cup champions that year.
Yep.
So if you're asking me, can Craig Berube find another level for this Leafs team? I think he can. It just has to have enough of the talent remaining. Marner is expendable, in my opinion. Marner's expendable. If you can somehow keep Nylander, Matthews, Tavares, and Riley there, I think you're okay. But out of all the coaches, but I think you're right. Berube would be a good one, and if he isn't, well, then that should just signal to the Leafs it's time.
It might be, but I feel it's Berube for the Leafs as your next head coach, because Sheldon Keefe is, as we mentioned, players coach, and you can only stick around with players coaches for so long that it ends up being more harmful than helpful for you. Which means that it then goes up to the higher ups, in which Brendan Shanahan, his time may also be up. As for Marner, who do you deal him to? I've talked with John on this matter, and I was thinking Clayton Keller with the new Utah franchise at first. What if there's someone that you could get Marner in a potential trade? Where would you send him to, and who gets in return?
Okay, so if you're going to ship off Marner, remind me again, what is his main role on the Toronto Maple Leafs? He's a defenseman?
Top 6 forward.
He's a top 6 forward. So likely he's going to be on one of the upper tier lines, unless you want to get creative and stick him on a third line and make that while not a necessarily diminished role. If you put him on the third line with two other adequate guys, that right there, to Marner's credit, he has talent. He has enough talent to where if he's put on a second or especially a third line, he makes that line automatically better no matter where you trade him. It's the matter of, as you said, it's the matter of scheme fit. And truth be told, if we're, you know what though? I think you may be onto something with the new Utah franchise because now, as for getting a player back,
What do you,
I don't know that the Yotes or whatever they're gonna call themselves, they are not trading Caden. They are not trading Clayton Keller. They are not going to do that. I don't know who they would trade necessarily in return for Marner, but Keller is not going to be on the board. I feel like he is your. I feel like he is that leader right now of the team for the Utah franchise. It would be a really bad idea to trade him. Um,
how about if I interest Toronto in Lawson Krause?
Lawson Krause.
I feel
Is he a prospect?
he's not a prospect, but he's an impactful forward who could unlock a new gear if he is inserted into Toronto. If we're speaking of hypothetical trades, but Marner, he becomes the number one right winger on the Utah franchise if it were to happen. But you need to do something more than just Lawson Krause. Say Krause, you may need to get someone else with him as well. Krause, let's say that Alex Kerfoot gets brought back to Toronto with Krause to shore up some depth if you're not able to keep either one or both of Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi.
You know what? That actually doesn't sound like a bad idea because Max Domi is a decent enough scorer, but outside of 1 year in Columbus, he's not that special in my opinion. He's decent scoring depth, but he's not a top line starter. So I think him and Kerfoot is a decent trade off. Tyler Bertuzzi,
Keep
see, Bertuzzi's an odd case for me because when he will put up numbers, it's just when he will put up those numbers is the big question.
it's a head case. Bertuzzi, he has shown flashes that he can break out offensively. We're just wondering when that breakout is going to come and how he will fare when truly breaking out. That playoff run with Boston was what he can do at his best. He was on and off in his Toronto time. I think Toronto could keep him around for another year or two. You need to play it safe with Tyler Bertuzzi. That's how I
By
feel
play
about
it
it.
safe. By play it safe, what do you mean?
Oh, what do you mean? What do I mean by this? About to keep it safe with him? That Bertuzzi,
Yeah.
he was on a 1-year deal. It was kind of a prove-it deal to prove that his playoff run with Boston wasn't a fluke. And to Bertuzzi's credit, he did all right with Toronto, but he was rather more up and down as opposed to when he was in Boston. Granted, the team that he joined with the Bruins unlocked another gear offensively. You can argue that he was the best playoff performer on the Bruins that year in that first round series against the Panthers. Bertuzzi, he earned that contract with the Leafs. But 43 points is not ideal for what you would want to have with a guy like Bertuzzi. He is physical, he can grind, and do all the dirty work.
I feel like okay, if you're the Leafs, but Bertuzzi just does not seem like a guy who's going to go on another 1-year deal. If he does, it will be a very sensible move, but it will be a very logical and sensible move by Tyler Bertuzzi. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Well, now that you say it, it feels like he's going to get a long-term deal potentially elsewhere. So the most likely the two between him and Domi to stay, I think it would be Domi.
Right. However, if in fact, because, okay, with the trade with the Coyotes, if Kerfoot were to come with the if Kerfoot were to come with the other guy you mentioned,
Kraus?
right, Krause, would Kerfoot in that scenario? Were you under the assumption that they would keep one or the other in terms of Domi or Bertuzzi, and Kerfoot would just be replacing one of those guys?
I feel that's the sense of where I'm going with Kerfoot replacing Tyler Bertuzzi on his departure. Max Domi, he stays with Austin Matthews on the top line. Lawson Krause essentially is going to be another depth replacement where you can insert him around for the lineup. Say you have a first line of Krause, Matthews, Domi. Would that work?
What that is, it's an intriguing thought. It's an intriguing scenario. What that would have to entail, though, is that number one, can Kerfoot once again mesh with the scheme of Toronto as well as Krause? Can they both mesh with the play style of Toronto and also but that's also on the assumption that Toronto is just going to accept a trade for those two and maybe picks, because it seems like to me who now has taken over for who now is taking Kyle Dubas' spot as GM.
Brad Treliving.
Right. Well, if we're going to look now, these guys aren't the same caliber, okay? Marner and Kachuk are not the same caliber of player. Let's go ahead and get that straight now. Kachuk is a lot better. Okay, Kachuk is closer to Matthews than Marner is to Kachuk, in my opinion. Would you say that's a fair statement?
That's a fair statement.
So, let's look at it. When Brad Treliving traded Matthew Kachuk to the Panthers, he got not only at what seemed at the time to be quality depth, he also got a bevy of picks to help restock the Calgary's draft capital storage.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, and also Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar to go with that.
exactly. So Marner is not going to fetch that price. However, I don't think that will stop Bradley Treliving from trying to get that same level of compensation back that he got for the truck. If he's realistic, he's not going to demand the moon for Marner, but he's also not going to go into this he's not going to go into this if he sorry, let me rephrase this. If he thinks that he is going to get shafted in the deal, he's not going to going to deal Marner. What it's contingent what this trade is contingent on is if they trade Krause and Kerfoot, like you say, what else is going to come back, and what is Brad Treliving willing to give Utah with Marner to sweeten the pot? Because if he were to add, let's say, he's not going to give up a high draft pick. I feel like first, second, third is off the board entirely for a Marner trade. But let's say he sprinkles in a fourth, or maybe a fourth and a fifth round pick
Or some
for
prospects.
Krause and
some
right.
prospects to go with it.
And prospects for that. What do you think? So what do you think? Will Treliving be content with a deal? Because in any trade, unless I found this in sports, the smartest trades are the trades where, of course, if it's your team, you want to fleece the other guy as a fan. But I feel that the best trades are the trades where everyone wins. Everyone gets production out of the player they trade. You see it a lot. You see it in baseball, where the best trades end up benefiting both teams, because it builds a certain rapport. It builds a certain rapport with the other guy. Now with Brad Treliving, other than the Kachuk trade, I don't know what else. I don't know what else I don't know what other trades he's made. The only GMs that I know who the GMs that I know, and I know their trade history, is because they screwed up, like, badly, a la Pierre Dorian and Jim Benning being the most infamous.
Yeah, Peter Chiarelli, Ken Holland as well, but that's more of late stage Holland and not pre-salary cap Holland. If we're talking about good GMs, you may be thinking Bill Zito among the class of the general managers today.
Yeah, or
Jim Nill.
Jim Nill, or whoever the GM is for the Vegas Golden Knights, because it nabbed them a Stanley Cup now.
Kelly McCrimmon, we think of him. And how about Steve Yzerman?
Stevie Y. Yep, his work in Tampa netted them back-to-back Stanley Cups, and for the most part, it's looking like a decent foundation in Detroit is starting to come to fruition. It just needs a couple more pieces. So, yes. Yep. So those GMs now where do you now, Alec? Let's say you were Brad Treliving, the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know you have to offload something, and Marner just seems like the guy. Someone has to do it, and Marner just seems like the most, in a heartless way to say this, the most expendable for the Leafs. You're trying to find a trade partner to make this easy, because we've been talking about them. Let's say it's Utah, and let's say Krause and Kerfoot come up in discussion. Do you think that's enough?
Well, if it's Krause and Kerfoot, I wouldn't stop at just them. As we mentioned before, you got to add some picks to it. I'm not sure which picks Utah is willing to give up, but also prospects, they need to be considered as well. You need to go deeper into the pool and take a deep look at it. Say, what if Michael Kesselring becomes available? Or how about someone like an Akiratu? Someone like those two to be up for discussion. You throw in some more picks around there. say a 4th round pick, as you said, say a 2nd round pick, maybe. They have a litany of 2nd round picks up for grabs. I mean, I'm not going to
You're
mention it
right,
here.
they do. So actually, okay. So let's say they don't have to trade away prospects. How many second round picks do you think they would be willing to give up and not give up prospects? Because there have been trades where no prospects have gone back because the amount of picks have been insane. And while it's not first round picks, we both know if you hoard second round picks like candy, those are the what we're seeing now. Second round picks are just as dangerous in the NHL as first round picks because a bunch of players have been found. So some of the best of the crop has been found in the second round.
You're right about that. Say, if you talk about key 2nd round picks that emerged for their teams, as of late, we look at Logan Stankoven for the Dallas Stars. He was a 2nd round pick. Many have predicted him to go in the 1st round in his draft class. You can flip-flop between him and Wyatt Johnston to be picked in the 1st and 2nd round. If you're Jim Nill, you would not be wrong either way. But Stankoven emerging as a 2nd round pick. You're right about that. 2nd round picks have become all as much valuable as 1st round picks now.
Yeah. So with all that being said, Marner's like, okay, TLDR. Marner is the most likely candidate to be traded from the Leafs.
Mm-hmm.
The trade partner, we've just decided on Utah because it's the most intriguing and it's a new city and they're gonna want to make an impact somehow.
Ryan Smith is not afraid to be aggressive sometimes.
Right. And both teams are not looking to get fleeced, so there's probably going to be a little bit of wheeling and dealing. But I think we've come to the agreement that there are ways to get this deal done. Ergo, Utah gets a very talented player. The Leafs get something back that can hopefully help them win now, and also have some room for the future. So that's how that goes. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Mr. Alec?
Well, realizing that how long we went about, we'll talk to each other about our predictions for these series. That's about it that we can come to for this episode. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up, Ian?
Nope. No, sir.
All right. Well, keep watching onwards for the rest of the 2nd round, and then we'll get back for discussion on 2nd round series and take a review at that. Potentially getting to our conference finals previews for how long they materialize. Until then, he's Ian.
Oh, wait. Hey, Alec. Sorry, real quick before we sign off. My prediction isn't looking so hot right now. Remember when I said that I thought that I believe the Bruins were frauds? They currently have a 3-1 lead in game 1 against the Panthers.
Well,
Oh,
it still can go either way this series. I expected to go 6, at least 6, but I feel Florida can still pull this one off.
yeah. All right, man. Well, it's been good talking to you.
All right. He's Ian. I am Alec. Have a good day, night, wherever you're at, and take care.